So the January transfer window is heating up from a lot of controversial deals that are coming up. But I think the most notable one is Man City, who decided to be quiet after losing Julian Alvarez in the summer, all of a sudden going on a spending spree. I saw this review where people are like Pep Guardiola lying down and Man City players standing around him with a shake, and it's like he's screaming money or my knee. And they brought him a bag of money and he just got up and started jubilating. And I think that sums up the way in which the January transfer window is going, where the big clubs who are struggling are going out to spend, especially those who have the money. And people are also trying to make much more financially friendly deals. And so on this episode, we are mainly going to break down the January transfer window. What are the top deals that are happening so far? And what are the big clubs actually doing in the transfer window? So first, we'll cover some confirmed transfers, which are not currently many. We'll also talk about the top rumors that are circulating around the big clubs, and we'll also zoom in on some specific players who are interesting to look out for, depending on the complications that are around their clubs. And at the end, we'll look at which teams should we look out for post the January transfer window. So, first of all, welcome back, Erasmus. People said you vanished and you didn't say anything to them. If you greet them this time around, the greeting won't sell, because when you were leaving to wherever you were going to, you didn't say Pim, and then you just left, and then all they saw was my face alone here. So, welcome back. And how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm still alive. Happy New Year. I remember that usually we have like a New Year episode, and I know that we plan
Yeah,
to do one, but I just got too busy. I was at the World University Debating Championship, of which I think we should
yeah,
have an episode about, um, where I was working as the one of the deputy chief adjudicators for
yeah,
the tournament. So it was quite busy in the sense that this time I wasn't just a judge or just a speaker. We were in charge of like moderating the entire tournament, which meant that we got pulled into like lots of meetings apart from planning the day's activities and being involved and also judging rounds, like lots
yeah,
of meetings after the tournament, meeting with various teams to assess how they were doing, troubleshooting for the next day. So it was hectic because we had to go there before time. And then after we were done, I just decided to spend. I got just about 3 days to view the city, which was a shame because I loved Panama City so much, and then the people in there.
yeah.
So I stayed longer, but um, yeah, that was what I was away doing. It wasn't like I was chilling, even though I was chilling for a couple of days.
Massa.
But
You were chilling.
I'm back.
All we know is that you were chilling. You weren't here, so you were chilling. Whatever you were doing is chilling.
I'm back
But
now, but I'm back with more gist. So I'm looking
Charlie,
forward.
they just will dissect into it. But I mean, it's January transfer window. People were hyping up what clubs are going to be doing, and aside from the Saudi frenzy we saw, I think 2 windows ago in the January transfer window, it's known to be a very quiet window. So, what is your assessment of it so far? Do you think this is like in between the very quiet and the very frenzy one we saw, or this is still a quiet window so far?
No, I think comparatively, like even January transfer windows are known to be quiet, but uh, there are moments where we've had like big deals within like the January window. But this
Yeah,
season, I think we've had more high profile, um, what do you call it, news comparatively, because usually it's just clubs trying to find out what works in the short term and a couple of players going on loan or coming back from loan. But this time we're
yeah,
seeing the likes of Man City actively in the market, players like Rashford, Kavaskelia, who are looking to move away from their clubs. And these are teams who are in positions where you think they need this kind of players. So, but I think also the leagues have gotten so competitive, especially the English Premier League, that we are still more likely going to see some big transfers because teams
yeah,
want to improve, especially teams at the bottom, even, and teams in the middle who want to push a bit forward are finding out that their squads are also stretched. But the third point also is that the financial fair play rules, teams are having to find their way around it, which means that within the summer, teams that didn't exploit the opportunity will be looking to exploit it now. And teams who are also already at the limits are finding more tactful ways of being able to move. Certain clubs like
Yeah.
Newcastle, for example, who struggle to get PSR ready, now need to make some transfers and are quite unwilling to let their players move and all of that. So I think
Yeah.
there's so much going on as a result of these three things, which makes it quite unusual for a January transfer window.
Interesting. Like you said, I think there are some big signings. I think Virgil van Dijk was signed in January, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yes.
Allison
So
as well was signed
yeah,
in
let's
January. So there are
one or
some
two.
big transfers. Yeah,
Yeah,
one or two that usually come in January. I
yeah,
mean, so what we did this year is quite fascinating. So the Shaft sat put together a transfer board, which you can see a very comprehensive, detailed transfer board for both the confirmed signings, the top rumors within the general transfer window. And so today we're going to review the transfer board, look at the top signings that we've pinned on there, and then go through them and see what the clubs are trying to achieve with some of these signings and what issues it's going to fix for them as well. And first on the list is Daniel Marlin. He's from Dortmund, played a lot of football for Dortmund. I think notably in the Champions League last season when Dortmund made the final, he was part of the squad and was very notable for his performances alongside Jadon Sancho when he went on his loan spell there as well. Um, and he's been signed to Aston Villa. Now, the interesting part is Aston Villa seems to be a comfortable team. They have a backup striker they are not using properly in John Duran, who a lot of English Premier League clubs will kill to have. So I look at this signing and I'm asking myself, why? What is Unai Emery looking for, right, in such a signing? And if you look at what he provides, he's really, really more of an attacking threat in terms of what his scouting reports shows. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on exactly what he's going to offer to Aston Villa, especially given that they are this team that's trying to push up in the table. It's like they are threatening, but they are not really up there. Is
yeah.
this a signing that aims towards that achievement?
Yeah, so my initial thoughts is this is a good signing,
Yeah,
but more so because of how Unai Emery plays and also the profile of player that Daniel Marlin is. So he's
yeah,
not an out and out winger, and that's also been one of the challenges with him because we've seen him play
yeah,
centrally and he struggled. He was moved to
yeah,
the left. He did better coming off the wings, but where he thrived more was on the right, and he's a
yeah,
right-footed player, so you usually expect left-footed players to play there where they cut in and cross. But because he was
yeah,
right-footed, he played much closer to the goal, allowing for the fullbacks to run past beyond him. So within the inside spaces, he seemed to be more effective. As a target man, he struggled more because then he had to have his back to goal with the player. So the inside
yeah,
tens or the inside forward position seems to be where he thrives the most. And if you look at his stats, you can see that his take on numbers are quite impressive for someone who is not a natural
yeah,
winger. But his progressive carries are also quite impressive, and that's one of the things you need if you are in an Unai Emery team. You look at
yeah,
the players who are playing in the position where he's likely to occupy right now. These are players like
yeah,
Ramsey, Bailey, McGinn. Um,
yeah,
and you realize that these players, although they are good, do not have like the X factor within them. Like Ramsey is still developing. He's had a couple of injuries, so he's been a bit stunted in that growth. John McGinn, quality player, but in some big games can sometimes struggle. Bailey, who is quite class, has also struggled with injuries over the last couple of months. So you need some backup in there. And also within the number 10 position, which also Daniel Marlin can play because his breakthrough season or his profile rose as a second striker, not necessarily even as a winger
yeah,
or a striker. So Aston Villa plays with a 10 who plays like a second striker, interchanging
yeah,
with the striker and also sometimes dropping on the wing. So I think that he can also be very good backup for Morgan Rogers, who has seen too much game time. Sometimes, like the Aston Villa players, Unai Emery tends to use like 13 players consistently
yeah,
different competition. So I think some depth over here will be good. But lastly, one of the players who was also playing that position, Jaden Philogene, who you remember from he was on loan at Hull City, who scored that wonder goal.
Yeah.
He's seen more as a natural winger who also plays on the right, but he struggled within this Aston Villa team because Unai Emery's football is demanding. It demands you to
Bro.
work off the
Yeah,
ball.
very, very hard.
Yes, and on the ball to be able to retain possession, things like that. And he's a more flashy winger. So there's news that he's moving across to, I think, I've forgotten the team, either to Everton or one of those teams. So that would mean
Yeah.
that there's also space freed up within the squad for this. I like the signing. I like the signing.
I mean, for me, I look at it and I'm wondering, would Unai Emery actually use him? Because you look at the likes of John Duran and the impact he's making, and it still baffles people why he's not starting. And yes, because he has, what do you call it? I've forgotten this guy's name. Aston Villa's first choice striker, cry friends.
Uh, Watkins.
Um, yeah, Oli Watkins, great. Oli Watkins, who is like ahead of him. And I like Oli Watkins' style of play, but I don't think he's as clinical as John Duran is proven to be, especially not in the form that John Duran started the season with, right? And so my only concern is whether Daniel would actually find the opportunity to break through into the squad. But hey, eventually, also like you say, probably a signing for the future as well, because this guy is what a 26-year-old who is still getting into his prime and most likely would be hitting the ground like proper peak in probably the next 2 years. And so you see that and probably think, yeah, maybe he's a signing for the future. Um, Another signing, which is mainly for Brighton, which is confirmed for Brighton, is Diego Gomez, who um, is known really as a midfielder who generally just plays and crashes the box. Right? He plays with Lionel Messi at Inter Miami, and he's known to like usually end up on some of these line breaking passes that Lionel Messi makes, even though he plays more from the deeper end of the midfield. And so a lot of people have highlighted his ability to also, for instance, retain possession and be dangerous on the ball. And you look at Brighton, who try and retain as much possession as they can and get a lot of results relying on players being technically good. This signing is one of the signings that people are really excited to see. And generally, I think if you look at any Brighton signing, people are generally just excited because they know Brighton always rely on data and never gets it wrong.
Yes.
Right. So I don't know. You look at his stats and it tells you everything about him. And you see the difference between him and Daniel Marlin's stats, which we just looked at. The number of greens and and the amount of dominance with which he plays. But also people would say, well, this is probably because he plays in the MLS with Inter Miami. So hey, the stats might not really be true. But what's your assessment of this signing
Yeah.
as well?
So I don't know this player very much, but I know Brighton. And Brighton signs very, very good players. Like Brighton within last
Yeah,
summer signed a couple of players that I thought were very, very interesting. Players like Matt O'Reilly, Jorginho Rute are very, very, very good technical players. Also Yasin Ayari. So these players usually that Brighton signs, like, and even some of the players they have right now, Jack Hinshelwood, Joao Pedro, can play in 3-4-5
yeah,
positions at once. They
yeah,
are for them. The goal is to sign players who are technically gifted and then
yeah,
find room for them on the pitch. So you see Jack Hinshelwood play right back, playing
yeah,
central midfielder, playing attacking midfielder, can play wing. Like for example, Yasin Ayari and a player called Kadioglu, who
yeah,
originally is a right back, was playing on the wings against Liverpool
yeah,
and scored that wonder goal. So I'm just excited because it's Brighton. And looking at some of these statistics, it just tells you that they just sign players who are all round and can
all
serve,
round good.
yes, can serve like purpose in special situations. So
Yeah,
actually looking forward to him starting and knowing them, this is a player that they feel is ready to come in and then come and start. Like else they wouldn't be
yeah,
signing that kind of
Because if you
player.
look at a midfielder who is in the 93rd percentile for non-penalty goals,
Mhm.
like
Yeah,
it tells you there's somebody that you can rely on to produce some of these special moments when you need them to come up with a goal.
yes, and
And
also they've been really.
you barely actually find midfielders who have this high volume of goals these days.
Yes,
Right. Like the Bruno Fernandes type of midfielder who is like a goal threat every time they get around the box.
yeah,
Um, and it's a complaint even people have about Odegaard that he's a playmaker, he does all the stuff, but he probably doesn't produce as much goals. So I think this is
yeah.
obviously a really unique signing.
Yeah, and also like look at his tackles, blocks, aerial threats. Like
Yeah,
it tells you that this is like a player who is also like defensively aware.
very defensive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I wanted to point out also that they've had like a number of injuries within their midfield setup. Like players that they brought, like James Milner, Solimarch is just
yeah.
coming back from injury. James Milner has been out for a very long while. João Pedro
But
had been out for some time, just
one
coming back.
one question though, did they really bring Milner back to build the squad?
I think they just brought him to increase the average age in the squad. It was a mathematical solution.
They didn't want to be too young a squad. Eh?
Yeah, so they just
Tell
because I would think the average age for Brighton will be like 22. Then you add Milner, then it's
22.
like it's at 29.
You're
It's
not being
ancient,
nice to me.
ancient of days.
Be careful. But yeah, like this what do you call it? Uh Diego Gomez. But one more signing that is not up here. You just mentioned because I actually forgot about it is Kavaskelia, who has been confirmed to move from
Wow, it's
uh
been confirmed.
yeah, was confirmed to move from Napoli
PSG.
to PSG. And I'm wondering because initially I was hearing Manchester United was in the race, and I prayed that he wouldn't go there because his beautiful
Why would
career would have just ended.
mm,
Beautiful career would have just ended. They'll say we are United haters here, but obviously he's a player that is known to have like these kind of wingers who can play as attacking midfielders who play in the pockets. And I sometimes feel like it's a player that Pep Guardiola will do wonders with if you hand him to Pep to play in his kind of system. And so he going to PSG as well. And PSG is doing this plenty tactical web that they are doing, and it's so weird because PSG and Juve. PSG is loaning Kolo Muani to Juve. Juve wants to ship off their striker, this guy Vlahović to Arsenal, and then PSG is buying Kvaratskhelia from Napoli. And I'm like, what sort of spider web are you guys doing? Because
yeah,
essentially you are shipping off players to fill the same positions, probably.
yeah. Which you would expect within a January transfer window. Like it's clubs problem solving, trying to problem solve
Yeah,
within in the middle of the season. So it would not be pretty. Like it would not be pretty at all. Like
yeah,
one of the ones who I'm sure we'll discuss is Trevor Chalobah being called back to Chelsea, which has
yeah,
created a like controversy. But look, Kavachkelia's move came as a huge surprise to everyone. People expected him to move eventually, but
yeah,
maybe for the summer, mostly
yeah,
because like he's if he was going to move last season, I know he was calling for his agent was calling for contract renegotiations,
yeah,
and somehow we thought he was going to move, but the drama ended being around Osimhen, and then he didn't move.
yeah,
So the thought was that he had bought into the project, and most likely a new contract to be offered within the season. So to see him move in January is pretty surprising, and I know it has come at a
yeah,
huge surprise to a lot of Napoli fans. Were actually pointing out to this and like were a bit agitated. They felt like, well, we are top of the table. We need all of the talent we can get. Plus, they
yeah,
don't like a reputable replacement. They have David Neres, who has been quite good, but isn't up to
yeah,
the same standard as Kavaskelia. But I think the most interesting thing over here is that Kavaskelia this season hasn't been on fire as much as
yeah,
2 seasons ago, where he was seen as this god. And trust me, he's a very, very brilliant player. Um,
yeah.
people have attributed it to the Conte system, where the wingers are expected to work as hard as the defenders.
Yeah,
So he's actually now mostly getting the balls very, very deep into his
yeah,
half. You need to be careful with that. Getting the balls deep within his half and having to advance with it forward, which means he has more meters to run, which means by the time he gets to the goal, he's more tired and his output is greatly reduced. Plus, Conte's incessance on like building through the middle. Like this season, Conte will
yeah,
be a wing back manager. This
yeah,
season, he's building through the middle. That's why you're seeing players like Lukaku and McTominay
yeah.
dominate stats
Doing
because
real well.
yes. So I think he has lots of reasons to move. The salary situation, he's like 162nd in terms of salary rankings, and he plays for Napoli, and he essentially won them the
Wow.
Scudetto 2 seasons ago. Yeah, he's still on
Yeah.
his contracts that he signed when he moved from Georgia, which isn't to a lot.
Wow.
People say he's
Yeah.
20,000 uh, pounds at the moment, or 20,000 euros. I don't know, like either 20,000 or 40,000, but it's really, really small. So
Yeah.
for a player of his stature, like
Yeah, definitely.
he was really, really just under paying him, and PSG is looking to multiply his salary by 10 times. So if they say they need you now, you just move. They just need to agree for a fee with.
Yes. PSG has Mbappe's budget freed up for them,
Yes,
so then they are looking for a
I
place to
think for me
spend.
the most interesting, because you touched on this also a bit, right? The PSG project. PSG
Yeah.
has Bradley Bacola on the wing, who this season has been.
Yeah.
They also have
Yeah.
Desiree Doué, whom Chelsea was after, but they got him, who is also
Yeah.
brilliant. Some have seen as some of this exciting talent. So for Kvaratskhelia, I don't know. Does that mean like what happens to Bacola? What happens to Doué? I can understand maybe for Doué he gets minutes off the bench, but Bradley Bacola is a player who needs to be playing consistently in order for you to see this.
I
But
don't think Bakola is going to be moved out of the starting 11. And I don't also know whether they are going to now start to try and play Kavaskelia more as an attacking mid than a winger. But
mm,
let's
perhaps,
see. Luis
perhaps
Enrique, you don't know what he's
yeah, they
thinking
don't
up
play
that
with the
that head
strike. They just
office.
loan their striker to Juve, right? So they
Yeah,
don't striker anyway.
yeah.
So who knows?
And I mean, I don't even consider Colomwani a striker. he, he he wasn't really striking because,
I'm so sad for that guy. Yeah.
but yeah, because he came up like as one of the best talents during the World Cup, like hype
Yeah.
around him, and all of a sudden the hype just died out and all that. If he had scored that World Cup goal, that World Cup winning goal, I'm sure the hype would
Mhm.
have continued.
No, it's not even the World Cup. I don't think he did as much as he did for Frankfurt the season before. Like he was
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
fire. And German league to French league, I don't know what's going on, but anyway. Okay.
Anyway, so next is Manchester City's transfer window. And I learned they've given Pep a huge sum of money to spend because apparently the club wanted to spend in the summer and he said no. And he's paid for it in the first half of the season. So this January transfer window, he went and said, the money that he said give to me that I said I don't like, bring it back. bring it back and double it. Because Manchester City is attacking 4 players in the January transfer window, and it just doesn't make sense, right? And the first on their list is some of the names. You don't even know how to mention it. Abdul Kader, right?
Answer.
Who Manchester City has agreed um, in excess of 40 million euros for, and he plays for Lens, and so he's mainly like a centre back who Manchester City is trying to, and I don't know why, but it's also surprising to me that at the moment where you think Manchester City's centre backs are now coming back from injury, they are going out to sign a centre back, right? Because
It's not for. I don't think it's for only for the
then
short term.
now,
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't think it's only for the short term. I mean, this guy has been good. I don't know how much he's lighting up the league. I know Lance has been doing fairly well, but I don't know how much he's
Yeah,
lighting up the league. But if they've gone for him, then especially at 20 years old, then you see that this is squad building for the future. People forget, but like
yeah.
all of the centre backs at City are now in their 30s. Like John Stones, we still think he's the young guy. He's like 31
Well,
now.
John Stones is old, but I mean, look at Govardio, look at Nathan Ake,
Nathan Ake is
this
29
other guy.
or will
Oh,
be
really?
30
He
this
looks so
season.
young.
Yeah, because we knew them from Bournemouth, so we thought, oh, these are like young.
Yeah,
They are
Nathan
all
Ake. There's this guy. I've forgotten his name. Nathan Ake and the other guy who also plays Akanji, Manu
yes,
Akanji,
yes,
um, Ruben Diaz. Hey, actually, they are old though. Because I was just
yes.
thinking about it, and like they actually
So,
feel old now. So
so for me, like I don't know, this is not something that we usually use to describe um Pep Guardiola, but it was a foolish decision not to spend. I can understand the
yeah,
decision because like well there wasn't a lot of space within the squad, and they were also looking to integrate a lot of young players. I think that was always the plan, to bring in young players in the middle. But Ruben Diaz is the youngest center back, and he is always injured. John Stones is 30 years old. Manuel Akanji is 29. Nathan Ake is 29. Kyle Walker is 34. Sergio Gomez is the only one who is 23, but he's obviously not even having enough playing time. So, and
what
they've
about Gvardiol? I think Gvardiol is much younger.
no, he's 22, so he's much
Yeah,
younger.
yeah,
So I think it's more of a squad building thing now, where they need someone who like
yeah,
would. But I don't presume that when all the centre backs are fit, Kusanov will be getting a lot of time. But with Man City, no player comes there and succeeds in their first season. We've seen it with
yeah,
Yo. I think he joined last season. Even though he's been good, you can still see some of the challenges that he has in terms of playing the position. And you can see that
yeah,
the plan is to play him more as a left back rather than like a out and
yeah.
out back. So um, I
I mean,
presume that.
also if you look at his scouting report, for instance, I think about it and I'm like, okay, the way Man City plays, what would be the ideal thing they are looking for in a centre back, right? And you look at it and it seems he would have them because his interceptions are the highest thing on his chart. And Man
Mm,
City, because they play a really, really high line, are always looking for defenders who can break the play even before it
yeah,
breaks into a counter attack,
yeah,
right? So they are always looking for those types of defenders. And if you go up a little bit and you look at his expected assists, right, or assisted goals, and his shot creating actions, they are really high as well. And that's also because Man City obviously have their defenders playing as if they are attacking midfielders, always
mm,
camping in opposition box. And so they are also looking for defenders who are usually technically good in creating situations when they are at the edge of the box. And that's why recently Govardio has been, sometimes when they are struggling for goals, has been the one coming up with
yeah,
some ridiculous shots from the edge of the box to score and break the tie for them and all that. And so you look at it and you're like, yeah, he's obviously a player in development, even if you look at the trend of his stats. But if you like forward it a bit and look at it like if all his major strengths are in full flow, would that be a good signing for Manchester City, which would be like 2 years down the line? Yeah, I
mm,
think that would be because with the way they play with Guardiola, most likely he will slot into the team and not have to do a lot of defensive work, but more of breaking plays and then creating a lot more attacking
yeah.
action for them.
I only say that people who know a lot about this player can feel free to put in the comment section like what their
Yeah,
projections are, like or what their feelings are towards uh, the the outcome he's going to have at City.
definitely. Um, the next player on Manchester City's radar has been Omar Mamouche, who is from Frankfurt. And like, bro, the amount of money they are cashing in for this player, sometimes I wonder the clubs that are selling these players, did they sit down and predict the business model or what? Because
Mhm.
hey, if you look at the amount they bought the players for and the amount that they are selling them for, it's insane. But Omar is 25 years old. He's slightly older. And if you look at his play, for instance, he has a lot more. Um, like he's also another all-rounded player, which doesn't make for a surprise for a Pep Guardiola signing. If you look at Phil Foden, they will throw him all over the pitch as if he's one big circle. And even when he signed Doku and Doku came, Doku and this guy Savinio used to interchange on the flanks, left, right, center, as if they are people that just want to play every single side. And so he's also a forward who has matured into a lot more threatening goal scorer, but also creates a lot, right? And carries the ball, wants to go 1v1 and take on a lot more when it comes to these plays. And my only question is, does Manchester City need a player of this profile? Because I
Yes,
know Manchester City is stacked up front to some degree, except maybe the centre forward situation itself.
yeah. Which and this player is a player who can play as a center forward, play on both of the wings. And if we are being very honest,
Yeah.
because no one wants to have this conversation, City doesn't have wingers. Like Jeremy Doku
Hey,
has
so
been
Doku and Savinho, what are they?
Jeremy Doku has been a huge disappointment. They
Hey,
said he's no, they said he's what do they call it? He loves right backs and he loves wing backs or full backs who are over 30 years old. So he's a MILF winger. So if you are quite pacey, like Doku won't have a good time against you. His output has been
yeah,
spotty. He's not been consistent, which you would expect in the first season happens. Second season, you expect that Guardiola players they pick up. It hasn't been the same. Like, let's be honest, most of the guys who joined within the title winning season, the treble winning season, and now
yeah,
have just not lived up to expectations. Savinho has been good in sports, has not been good consistently. And you can say it's a
yeah.
product of the entire team struggling and him finding his place in the league. But Foden, Bernardo Silva on the wings has just not worked. Foden on the wings,
Matheus Nunes.
Mateus Nunes on the wings doesn't work. So I think this guy can come in and still be on the wing.
What
Jack Grealish,
shows that this guy will work though?
no, because
Hey,
I'm
Grealish
not
is still a
sure.
player.
Grealish is still a player, apparently. Someone said
Hey,
if Grealish was signed 100 million from Brazil, you would have heard things, right? Anthony
it's
is
true
having
actually. If
his
also if Grealish was signed to a different team other
yes,
than Man City, it would have been
yes.
worse for him.
Maybe to Man United, it would have been worse for him. I don't know how he gets away with it. But
Hey,
point is that their attackers are just not informed at the moment, and this guy is the
yeah,
most informed player in all of Europe. Like you saw the hat trick he scored against Bayern Munich, like
yeah,
it was insane. He has unreal ability. So, and his playing style, I think, fits the Premier League too. I think there are
yeah,
points in time where Haaland just is struggling, because no one is feeding him the balls, things like that. If you have a
yeah,
striker who can come in, pick up the ball, shoot from 90 yards, and
yeah,
then score, or like pull up some magic and then score, I think
yeah.
there's more variation to the attack because
Do you
Man City is
think
predictable
it
at the
was a
moment.
mistake? Do you think it was a mistake to sell Julian Alvarez?
No, it wasn't. They bought this player for just around 45 million and they sold him for 95. Like the money was just too good. He wanted to go. He needed more playing time. It was
No, but
useless to try and keep him.
but but Erasmus, you are buying another option for over 70 million, right? And you can't guarantee that he gives you what Julian gives you. So obviously, Julian was going for a much higher price, but that's also because of the impact he had made in the team. And for me, I saw Julian Alvarez's role not just as deputizing for Haaland, but also deputizing for De Bruyne in a way that Foden couldn't, and in a way that no other team member could. And De Bruyne was picking up way too many injuries because he was getting old. So you have to wait. It's like Liverpool receiving a 70 million bid for Darwin Nunes. Sure, Darwin Nunes is not even producing as much as this guy is, as much as Julian Alvarez was. But you look at the impact in the team and you have to weigh the odds, right? And
Yeah,
to me, I look back on it with a lot of pain that they let him go.
but yeah, I agree. But like also when the player wants to go, like he wants to go. Like even when he was playing, he was consistently saying he was being played out of position. The 10 position was not like his actual position sometimes being put on the wings. Like he was made to do a lot of defensive work. So it's quite
Yeah.
clear that he wanted to be a main man of the team, and he's won a World Cup. He's shown that he's good enough to be a main man of the team, and at Atletico, everyone plays for him. So I think you just have to let such a player go,
Did
especially
he
when.
win the World Cup or did the World Cup win him? But two more top rumors for Manchester City, and a lot of these deals are actually close. So, Vitoris from Palmeiras in Brazil, and the place where Endrick was signed, and Manchester City is pursuing this guy who is a defender. And again, like you said, it seems like they are building a defensive a defensive squad for the future. Because again, you look at this guy, Reese is 19 years of age. He's not had that much of experience. He's not grown into the role. And so I think it's more of these signings that are a lot more on prediction and talent and what the data is saying for the future, as opposed to fixing issues now, right? But again, if you look at it, the same attributes that I was saying, his tackles, his clearances, his aerial duels won, his pass completion really high, and his goals as a defender in the 67th percentile, his non-penalty goals is also really high. So it seems like City is still trying to prioritize players who are within a certain profile of defenders who can play high up the pitch or have attributes that are useful high up the pitch, and not just the traditional defenders who will be sitting in deep inside Manchester United box like Harry Maguire. So um I don't know.
Yeah,
Again,
there's not much to say
there's not
about.
much to say.
Yeah. So
Yeah. But one more interesting one is Andrea Cambiaso, who is a Juventus player now, and City is actively chasing this guy, and he's a 24-year-old, and they are trying to make a bid for him for 60 million or 65 million, and I'm thinking whether or not this is trying to be a replacement for Kyle Walker, who is leaving because he plays as a fullback, and they are trying to find him as a long-term replacement for Kyle. And if you look at his profile, his attacking numbers are superb. Like, like
I
for a
actually thought it was
fullback,
a winger. I actually thought it was a winger because I
bro,
seen him from the Champions League games, and
he's a fullback, and his numbers are insane.
yeah, just interesting. No, I think yeah, which sort of like leads us to talking about the Kyle Walker situation. I
Yeah,
was quite surprised that he's leaving, especially now because he's captain of the team, and this is a team that's struggling at this point. But he's 34 years old. I think there's an age at
yeah.
which you can live into like a respectable position. Like he's because at this point he needs to chase the mullah, he needs to chase the money. Because I've heard reports of the Saudi coming in and all of that.
Yeah, but he's trying to stay in Europe. I think the main thing I see, if you look at Kyle Walker's stats as it's up on the screen, is that look, this is a guy who is now in a league that's way above him. And
Yes.
let's not mince words. Walker has played his best football in the Premier League. But if you look at the past 365 days, like, see as a defender, look at his tackles, look at where he's ranking in the 17th percentile, look at his interceptions, look at his blocks, look at his clearances. And a lot of people would say, yeah, Manchester City, when you play for them, they possess a lot, so you don't have to do a lot in these areas. But that's a problem. Man City in the past 6 to 7 months have really been struggling. So
Mm.
if they've been struggling and your numbers in these areas are still as down as they are, then that's where the problem is, because Man City has needed these performances in the games that they've really struggled in the Premier League
Yeah, and
recently.
that's why like I think it goes back to what we said at the beginning when we spoke about Man City. Like Guardiola didn't take smart decisions. Like he was
Yeah.
quite emotional about the squad. He's like, look, this is a squad that won the treble two
Like
seasons
even
ago.
taking Gundogan back.
Yes, why do you want to rip it apart?
Yeah.
Like, and it was an emotional decision, and I get it. Like front office has usually been plagued with this question for so long. If you look at Michael Jordan's story, the story about the
Yeah,
Chicago Bulls after they won, was it three in a row? And then it was like, what do you do about this team? Like they are getting old. Do you give them new contracts and expect them to keep on winning, winning, winning? Or you plan for the
yeah.
future? That means stopping a winning machine. Guardiola's opinion was that this is a winning machine. They just won
Keep it
the
going.
trophy on the bounce, but without looking at stats like this, seeing that their output was decreasing. So I'm not surprised
Yeah,
when Walker says he wants a new challenge because clearly I don't see what would motivate him to up the performances which he has, and he's still putting in a lot of
yeah.
work for um like for a squad that's like you can clearly tell is demotivated in many areas. So I didn't think he needed to
Like
come.
just look at just look at Walker and Casado's
This
stats
is savage.
side by side.
This is savage.
Just look at the stats side by side, and you can tell when you have a team with Walker currently and you have a team with Casado, the impact will be vastly different, right? So
Definitely.
obviously, um, finally, let's go to Manchester United and then try and wrap up with a few of these transfers. I think some of these ones will just rush through because they've been talking about them a lot. Marcus Rashford and Alejandro Garnacho. For me, I don't get Rashford's noise because he's been terrible. See his stats as a winger, a top so-called top world class rated winger. See, you are in the 63rd percentile of non-penalty goals. It's not like you are scoring penalties anyway, and you are doing clearances. Your biggest asset in the last 365 days is clearances. Even Harry Maguire,
Mhm.
even
But like
Harry
I think the Rashford conversation is one that we've had before, and I think like Rashford is a player that I really like. Like he's a player that I think is top player, but you need to know how to use him.
Me,
Which
I don't think so again.
like look, I said the same thing about Jadon Sancho, and today he's at Chelsea, and people are like, wow, wow, wow. Like he's a player that when you see him, you know he has the ability, but there are some players that you need more to you need something extra to get more out of them. You see, like he's a player who holds back a lot. He seems to be quite emotional. So when he's not happy, he's not playing well. And
Yeah,
I feel like the system that United also sets up doesn't always suit like his best playing ability. We saw it with Sancho when he was asked to hug the touchline and play quite deep.
that's the funny thing. I think Sancho will thrive more in United's current system
Setup.
than
Yes,
Rashford would.
yes.
I know Rashford has the qualities to be dangerous as one of the two tens, but I know he doesn't like it.
He doesn't like it,
So
and he because he's a player who needs to take his stride. He needs
one
to.
v one, yeah,
So people you were even linking him to Chelsea, given that like he's more of a 1v1 dribbler, and because if you bring him to a team like Chelsea, where they play for the wingers, and then getting him 1v1 with fullbacks, he's going to rip them apart. He's going to create space for his teammates, and which
yeah,
was what he was doing, but like it wasn't really showing. So I think sometimes when you are in life, you are in a place where you are not happy. Instead of trying to make it work, you just find a new place, which is what he's doing. And same for Alejandro Garnacho. I know he's had his issues at Man United, but he's a really, really good player. But he's young.
yeah,
It's only that the weight of expectation on him to deliver has increased because of his own output in the past, because of players
yeah.
like Rashford who just weren't pulling up. If he goes to Napoli, I think this will be a sweet move because he's in a
Yeah.
perfect place where he can play his football quite freely, and a coach like Conte who can also make sure that he gets the most out of him, can be more disciplined. And you'll be seeing Garnacho back on the market for 60 million in a few years.
But United said they won't give him up for 40 unless 60. You are saying they should wait for a few years before he'll
Oh
get to
no, this
60K.
player is 20, 24. 24. Oh, come on. Come on, United. I know they want money to make
Napoli, Napoli
Ahmad.
offered 40 million and they turned it down.
But come on, this is ridiculous. Like Garnacho, please. I know
Yeah,
they
but
want to
I
win
also think I also think that if United should keep Garnacho, um, I think he's a player who has obviously he's young. He's known to be an out and out winger, but I also know that he's a player who is malleable. Right at this stage of, he's not like Rashford who has played to his 26 years and he has a fixed identity. I know he has a malleable identity at this point, which with coaching he can, because if you look at their game against Arsenal, I think him playing as one of the tens, and I think the only thing that it requires of him a lot more is to make good decisions.
Yeah,
Because in playing as one of the tens, he can't be taking too much risk. Even Bruno Fernandes now is being asked to be very conservative with the ball instead
yeah,
of being this transition powerhouse like under Ten Hag. And so it's just about him adapting to the system. And I think if he does, I see him, Ahmad, Mainoo, Ugarte, Fernandez, I think will be fading out soon. But I think those players are the ones who are going to be Euro, for instance, are the ones going to be the core of this Manchester United project in the next 3 to 4 years. But it's as to whether they can keep him happy, right, and not ostracize him. But
yeah.
let's see how things go. But obviously, he's a much better profile. Keep Garnacho and sell Rashford. Rashford, yeah, he's been deadwood on the squad. But a few players are also looking to move. Oh, our best player, Charlie, Ballon d'Or winner, Anthony.
Which club wants to buy Anthony?
No club has started wanting to buy him, but they are like players that United is looking forward to move on
Yeah,
this January or at least in the summer. So Anthony, Christian
I
Eriksen,
know.
and
I know the
Casemiro.
team you can go to.
Which team?
Charcoal FC, because he's Deadwood.
Yeah,
Charcoal
it's
FC.
okay. Why?
No, but
It's okay.
on a I think I think like these players is like there's not much to say about them. Like Anthony is quite clear that he belongs to a Samba loving league. It's just a
Yeah, I think
problem
he
of
should just. I think he should just leave. And my main problem is they signed him to play football that he's not used to playing. And it's the
yeah,
same problem they made with the same issue they did with um, Sancho. You signed Sancho to come and hug the touchline when you know he's not a touchline hugging player. Then you sign Anthony, who likes to play with a fullback who is overlapping,
Mhm.
and you sign him and you invert your fullback into the midfield. Like you want him to take on players, and he doesn't want to because he can't. I know
Yeah,
people look at clips of Anthony dribbling, but go check his Ajax numbers. He's not the player who takes on players 1v1 and dribbles. He likes to play like one
yes,
touch football, give it to you,
yes,
run
and find
inside,
his
give it to
way
him.
into the central space and then shoot. Yeah.
So sometimes,
So
but he too. He too.
I think he should just go to a place that where he'll be happy. Like that's what it should be.
Yeah.
Casemiro, it's quite clear
Casemiro,
that
I learned Cristiano Ronaldo has requested that they sign him to Al Nassr. You know
he should.
Ronaldo's new contract, Charlie.
Yeah.
Ronaldo's new contract. Hey, we should have been footballers. So why are we even doing this?
Why are we are here discussing footballers when we could be footballers?
Ronaldo's new contract. Hey. Also,
So
oh,
they decided
Haaland
to
just
do the
renewed his
clause
contract to
for 10 years.
Haaland.
When
Haaland actually just renewed his contract to 2034, and apparently he has one of the highest salaries in football history,
wow,
bro. Just
Man
today,
City, Man City wants to they want to dominate world football. It's quite clear,
they are
and
coming. They are
yeah, they
coming,
know that. Because with a guy like Haaland, you can dominate football for so many years, and he's what
bro.
23, which means he
And
leaves for
that's the
this.
thing. Striking profiles are not there, let alone the profile of Erling Haaland.
Yeah, he's a player that they really cannot lose. And I apparently heard that the Real Madrid the sniffing around thing was real. Real
Yeah,
Madrid
yeah, 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 yeah.
have been crazy.
Madrid, they are aggressive
Yeah,
because they know they are the one club who can poach any player in the world. And you
yeah,
ask them the money and they will pay. So if
it's
it's
crazy.
either once they get the player's mind, either they pay you the money or the player runs out the contract and comes to them
Yeah,
for free.
but me also tells me that like Man City is hoping to be in sort of that league or that status, which I think every big
Yeah.
club you need the elite players playing for you and people wanting to come there. And they
Some
have
people are also
always have
saying
money. So
maybe it's because they know that they will lose the charges case, so they are tying down their players for 2034.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
saying.
Imagine being in the championship with Haaland.
They should just start the season, pause it, award them the win, and then the rest of the players, the rest of the teams, just play the
And
playoffs
every
for the
header
rest
is
of
a
the
goal. Oh.
season. Bro, every counter attack, every goal kick is a goal. Hey, Haaland. No. But I
Okay.
mean, also Eriksen has played a role for Manchester United, and I just think it's time for him to leave. Like he's paid his dues, Charlie. They've given him a cool
Don't
end to
look. Let's be honest.
his
I
years
don't
in
understand the
football.
Eriksen transfer. Like it never made any sense. It was never going to
He
make
was a
any.
free transfer, and I think at the time when Eric Ten Hag came, he was obviously looking at bodies. He just wanted he just wanted bodies. And to be
Forget
very
that.
honest, in that very first season, when Eriksen was playing with Casemiro, he did well. Both of them did well. Both Eriksen and Casemiro
Yeah,
did
but
well.
the problem with Eriksen is that you don't depend on him like game after game after game. That was the
No,
problem.
you can't. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the problem because they ended up depending on him too much, and it was like, look, you guys
But I
brought
mean,
me here.
yesterday he came in and created some really cool assists for Ahmad Diallo's second goal,
Mm.
which eventually led to them winning the game. So
I see
he
him
has
playing for
like,
Inter Milan.
oh, by you to why?
Inter Milan, they just if you are 30, they're like, wow, you are 30, come and sign.
Inter
Like,
Milan, the way they say they train, I'm not sure Eriksen can train like that. Charlie, Eriksen, Eriksen would die.
but Mkhitaryan is 34 playing there. I can't Kanoglu 33.
Please,
Like
please,
Medis
he's
when
not.
he was 10, 31, he left. Like they see you
Have
at
you
30.
seen Have you seen Eriksen running on the pitch before? Like United there's been a counter attack against United and Eriksen is running back. Have you watched any of those clips before? Hey, bro,
He'll survive.
they start the running. Hoyland is at the back. Hoyland will reach the United goal before Eriksen, who started from the middle. That's
He's taking his time.
okay.
He has to pass through
Uh,
immigration.
you dare. So yeah, that's it. But I mean, I think we've touched on these two players, Kolomwani and Vlahović. But the main interesting part is Arsenal. Why have they still not? Me, I still don't get this. Why have they still not signed a striker to date?
So this is how Arsenal sounds to me. Arsenal sounds like that guy in the exam hall who just wants to like the mass
Wants to
question.
make people feel like they know.
They know, like this, like choose one out of these three. He will answer
Yeah,
two, and then he will answer the hardest
he,
one and the simplest
he would
question.
call the teacher. He would call the teacher and ask, "Can I do two?"
Can I do two? Like they just look like they want to do things the hard way. Like I just don't understand. Like they look at it. Ateta is there, it's like, I can be clever and do this and this and this and this, and you can see it's not working. But
They
he will
overcomplicate things.
because
Nah.
like look, this Zubimendi move. It was quite clear that the player doesn't want to move, so this contract is going to be protracted. That's one.
Yeah.
You had already signed a player from there, which is Mikel Merino. He's had a lot of injury
Yeah.
and adaptation issues. It's not worked. And I get that you want to find solutions for the future because Partey is 31, but you have Rice, you have Timber who can play midfield, you have Martin Skelly or whatever his name is, the guy Haaland.
Just extend Jorginho's contract for a year or something and buy yourself time.
Yeah, Jorginho is also 33, but like you can buy yourself some time in there. They need a striker. Like Gabriel Jesus cannot stay for his life. And when he comes back, he needs an adaptation period. But they'll tell you that Havertz, we believe in Havertz. Havertz's problem is not the belief. it's I don't understand. Like people, like look, I've been over there before. I'm a Havertz survivor.
This is a bar. Like it's so true. Havertz's problem is not the belief.
No, it's not the belief. I'm a Havertz survivor. The problem with Havertz is that he's going to raise your expectations. He's going to under
And
deliver.
he would dip
Like,
them. Yeah.
yes, he's a talent for sure, but he can't sustain the levels of his talent consistently enough. He was still going to make blunders. People made it look like he was missing chances because he was young. Havertz gets in front of the
Yeah.
goal and he forgets that he's a player. Like, I don't know whether he panicked or whatever it is, and it's shown
I
that it's
remember you saying this, that I think it was like when Havertz was scoring a lot in February or March last year.
yeah,
And then you were like, this is typical Havertz. He does this
yeah,
every year in February
yeah.
and March,
I
and
think
his time will
Havertz
come
is
again.
survivor. We should have like I don't know, a blue badge somewhere that shows that we've
Hey,
survived that.
in
You'll
their
be
match against
there
United, the number of goals he missed and the number of
like
sitters he missed, and
he.
then missing the penalty in the end. I'm like,
hmm. I
Christ.
watched Havertz since Leverkusen, and when he came to Chelsea, like I had all my
Yeah,
hopes up in terms of like uh, what like sort of like we can do with him and all of that. But
yeah,
eventually, you just come and realize that he's a player that needs a lot of like time. Like
yeah,
you cannot rush him. Like because Jorginho made an interview and he spoke about Havertz and he said, "Oh, sometimes when you see the things Havertz does in training, where he's putting the ball in the top bins and things like that, and I feel like that's how his mind works. He gets in front of the goal
yeah,
and he thinks he can be cool and calm, then he will miss.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's his nature. He cannot be those guys who just go straight for it, try and shoot.
It's
So
so true. When it works, we call him like cold
yes,
and
yes,
creative and
yes.
brilliant. But a lot of the
Yes.
time, it won't work.
Yes, so that's what I realized with Havertz, and I just accepted that this guy will miss some chances, but he will score some really stupendous chances. He will score some goals that would excite you, and that's the kind of player
Yeah,
he is. Unfortunately, that's not the kind of player you win a league with, and Arsenal
but
fans need to understand that
do
Arteta
you
needs to
think
understand that.
Vlahović is the solution? Because look at Vlahovic's goals and look at his non-penalty goals and
Yes,
all
yes.
that.
Vlahović is a player, is a striker that can, even though he's 6 foot and beyond, he can play
Yeah,
outside of the box. Like he's a penalty box player, which is good because you
yeah,
have Saka and Co who are floating in crosses. Like
yeah.
Arsenal's problem is not that they are not creating chances; they are just not finishing them. And for me, the answer is simple: get someone who finishes. It's not complicated,
But
Arteta, Mr. Arteta. It's
Era-
not complicated. Like
Erasmus, that's
the
my
problem
problem
is
here though, because Vlahovic's expected goals
mm,
put him in the 83rd percentile.
of
His
all strikers in the
actual
world.
goals his actual goals put him in the 59th percentile. And that's my problem. If Arsenal have a squad which is creating chances and not converting, is the solution to bring in a striking profile which is consistently showing to under-deliver per his expected goals and the chances that he's getting.
No, no, no. So get someone who is better. If you feel like Vlahovic, because like for me, my number one choice would be Isak. But
Yeah,
obviously Isak.
Newcastle
But
won't
I
sell. So
guarantee you,
at least Vlahovic,
I
I know is
guarantee
better than Gabriel
Havertz.
Jesus and Havertz.
Yes, like that's my own. Like he's a player that if things get hard, he can come out of the box, pick up the ball, shoot
Yeah,
from
and
outside the
just
box,
score.
and score.
Yeah.
So he's a player that can play in a variety of roles. So I think he's
Also, I
like
think the kind of chances that Arsenal would create for him are probably easy to score chances than you get at Juve. Because Juve,
you
you'd
bet,
have to run a lot
you
to
bet.
sometimes finish some of
Juve,
these
Juve,
chances off.
Juve, I don't know how they are playing this season, but they used to play a lot of football that was demanding him to also run like a lot of counter
Yeah.
attacking and things like that. Like these guys Arsenal pin teams back. So for me, the solution is really, really simple. Get a finisher.
If you look at this board right now, this is also the reason why I felt they could just give Jorginho a 1 year extension, because clearly the Zubimendi profile is very similar to the Partey profile in terms of the defensive stability. Obviously, Zubimendi offers more and it's probably a lot more solid in terms of doing different things than Partey, but it's a lot more similar to Thomas Partey than he is to Jorginho.
Mhm.
Right. So even if you are signing on Zubimendi, I don't know why Arsenal seems to be thinking that they are these Pep Guardiola rock stars who just want to create a system for themselves and behave in a manner that Pep does. Like, okay, Pep won the league by playing false nine and never had an out and out striker for like 5 years before he signed. Even Pep went to sign Haaland. You are sitting there doing Havertz. We. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about one more thing. Your team. Unfortunately, I didn't do a proper scouting report on them because obviously you guys signed all the players in the world in the last two windows. So Chelsea, you guys have called back Trevor Chalobah. Why?
So, like, I know a lot of people within the fan base have been bashing the club, saying that, yeah, like you sent out Chalobah and
Yeah,
now you're trying to get him back. But I need people to recognize that this was the same thing they said about Gallagher. This was the same thing they said about a lot of other players that were shipped out, but no one has complained. The Trevor Chalobah situation is a unique one because the club has been wanting to sell him since. And the main reason is because this is a local homegrown player, which means that any amount we sell him for, we get pure
full
profit.
profit. Yeah,
Pure profit. So that's something that the club has been seeking in order to balance its books. So it's not a sentimental decision. Moreover,
yeah,
Trevor Chalobah, as good as he is, has been he was good in his breakout season, but he's been injured for so long that his development was stunted a bit. Towards the end of last season, when he became consistent, you saw him going back to his best. But even so, the kind of football that Maresca plays demands for the fullbacks to be a bit more solid in terms of carrying the ball, which he's okay with, but not the
yeah,
excellent one at, because his ball retention is quite atrocious, but he's quite good at passing. So this is a player who doesn't fully fit the profile of the squad. We need him for the money and is constantly injured. And that's why we wanted to sell him. And at the end of the day, we needed to make room within our squad to sign the players that we thought could play the football. So if we
yeah,
couldn't find a direct solution for him in the market, we send him out on loan. Unfortunately, everyone has been injured, and the players who are on the bench now, like Disasi and Co, are just not good enough. So we need the numbers
yeah,
back. Fofana is not coming back anytime soon. Disasi is not good enough. Achampon is still young. So there's opportunity for him to play. And if there's
yeah,
opportunity for him to play, there's opportunity for him to impress. And they are still going to sell him at the end of this by the end of the summer window. Make no mistake
yeah,
about because they
yeah,
are calling back Anselmino from Boca Juniors.
yeah,
They are trying to sign Julian Arao from Bournemouth. They are looking into signing a few more of the centre backs, and the kind of centre backs we are looking for. I'm sorry, Chaloba is not there. So this is a stopgap measure,
yeah,
which we have to do because we tried to sign McGahey, whom you think because he was a former Chelsea player will be easy, but
yeah.
Palace let him go in the winter.
No,
We said, well, then what's the next best thing we can do? We can pinch Trevor Chalobah, which I can imagine will sour the relationship with Crystal Palace, because Gehi would have
yeah,
been ideal. He's the perfect replacement for Fofana, given that he's gone.
yeah,
He's good with the ball, comfortable carrying it over long distances. His passing is excellent, and he's the most important thing is an aggressive defender, which means that he can close down spaces, track down his marker, and
yeah.
in comparison with Kowo, who is more of the reserved passer situation, I think it would have been really, really good.
Okay. One final piece before we leave for this episode. I want you to I'm going to pick clubs, and I just want you to tell me what you expect from them after January transfer window closes. Let's start with league leaders Liverpool. What do you think Liverpool would look like? Do you think they would boost any space, any areas of the squad? Do you think they would be energized to move on, or do you
Yeah.
think they're likely to drop form?
No, no, no. So Liverpool most likely will continue the way they've been. Beyond the transfer issues, which it looks like it's not disturbing them, they should be fine. They're also having players return, players like Jota, Harvey Elliott, who are
Yeah,
looking quite sharp. So I would think that it would bolster them for the last end of the season. They also have some young players who are showing up in some of these cup games. So I think that they have enough squad to sustain themselves over the numerous competitions which they
yeah,
have. And really, the other clubs have not been at full strength enough to be able to challenge them. So even if they drop off a little
yeah.
bit, I don't think they lose any momentum.
Arne Slot. La 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 la. Anyway, what about Manchester City? Pep Guardiola lining up his war chest with money.
Yeah, I think they make a push for top four. I think they'll find some consistency. They'll still lose one or two odd games, but I think they'll find some consistency and make it for top four.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
they'll struggle in the deep ends. I think the Champions League they'll make it out, but they'll struggle in the deep ends once they reach like some of the knockout stages, the
Oh,
deeper knockout rounds.
interesting. Patrice Evra said it. Was it Patrice Evra? Yeah. He said, I can't say. Arsenal, watching them is like watching Netflix.
We always wait for next season.
Oh, you always wait for next season.
No, I think
What
Arsenal.
about? Yes, go ahead.
No, I think Arsenal should be fine. Like we saw their performance against Tottenham tells you that the
Yeah.
performance is there. They just I think it's in their heads. Like the players are good enough, but problem with Arteta
To be
since
very honest, that performance, me, I saw it as Tottenham losing more than Arsenal winning.
you can say that, but also like Arsenal was quite impressive in
Now,
terms of
Bia, you couldn't win against 10 Men United. Oh,
they were able to play their game. Problem is that like he had Reece Nelson, he had Emil Smith Rowe, he had Nketiah who sort of like understood the football he wanted, and if he made subs, it wasn't reflected. But people just thought they didn't have the quality. Now he has Sterling, I don't know, a couple of other guys who just aren't showing up, and the players look fatigued.
yeah.
They look like they are bored.
Now,
When
Sterling, that he's not playing, he's still fatigued. Hey.
yes, Sterling there now his problems are no, but I think I think I think they would be caught up in some games, but I think they should be able to
Yeah.
dispatch of most of the teams. I still think they make top four. They push slightly for the title, but with the way they are being inconsistent, I don't see them like having a standout season. I think in the Champions League, yes, they are in a good spot, but once they make it to the playout rounds and they start meeting like the Bayerns and co, they'll struggle.
Yeah. Interesting. Then, your favorite team, Manchester United.
I like the new Manchester United. To be honest, like Ruben Amorim is showing that if you get him his players, he can get you the results. Because the way he has been
This
able
is
to,
the part I don't like. This is the part I don't like. If you get him his players. This is the part I don't like about Manchester United and their project building. In same every time a manager comes, get him his players. Every time they sack him after they get him his players. Then another manager has to spend the first 2 years of his managerial life getting out the players of the old manager and getting in his players, and then he ends up getting sacked after he gets his players and fails to deliver. What is all this about getting his players? Can't we just
no,
set an expectation for Amorim to use the players that he has and deliver?
it's quite clear. Like it's quite clear when they are playing that when it works, it's working so well, and then there's a mistake at the back or there's a mistake in the midfield, and then they all just come collapsing. It looks like he
Yeah,
has the players that can form the base of the new system which he has, but they need to be quite aggressive in the profiles they want. Like that,
yeah.
it's a specialist system, and you need specialist players. So, I'm seeing the likes of Kobe Mainoo being put up for the transfer market, which also is because they need to raise massive amounts of
If
capital
if
in
they
order
do
to
that thing, they should just sell the club. They should
which
sell
they
the club.
probably would have to. They probably would have to. They've already sold minority parts. So
But yeah, one final thing. I know if I ask you what clubs would do fair like, and I don't ask you about Chelsea, you say that I'm a Chelsea hater. So you there? What about Chelsea? Now that you said all the objective ones, be biased for one. So what about Chelsea?
no, I think Chelsea, like we've said it already, like we are not
We are
title.
not in the title race.
Yeah, we already said it. Like we were quite
Now
clear.
that you are in your bad form, you are justifying it by we already said it.
And we've also had a lot of injuries. Like if you be fair to us, a lot of players
As
who have been
Pep
in and out.
Guardiola also had a lot of injuries.
Yeah, but we are not.
He,
Yeah, we are not saying Pep Guardiola has failed, right? We've also said he has had a lot of injuries. No, but on a more serious note, I think we make top four. The
yeah,
only thing right now is that with the way Nottingham Forest is going, they are definitely going to make top four. They seem to be the most informed team. but also
So
like
now you said Liverpool would be there. Arsenal. You said Chelsea will make top four. Nottingham Forest. You've also said Manchester City will make top four. So which of these five are you kicking out?
so that's exactly what I'm coming to, because I'm saying that it looks like Nottingham Forest will be there. Like I think close to the end of the season, when they can see that it's possible, they will have more motivation to push further. But and they like also luckily for their squad, they've not had the injuries that the likes of Arsenal, Chelsea, Man
I
City
think the
have had.
motivation there doesn't matter. The
No,
injuries
no,
will catch up with them.
yes. So I think
So
that's the
if you
thing.
like, let's go on a bet between you and I. Me, I think Nottingham Forest will make top four. You are saying they will make top four. End of the season,
No,
will come
I
and
said
assess.
they are there. They are there now. They
Hey,
are
hey,
making.
hey, hey, pick a side. Don't do they are there. What do you mean by
No,
they are there? Just be bold and say that
let
they will
me
make
land.
top four.
Let me land. I can't be
Uh-huh.
just use boldness to make stupid decisions. So they are in the top four now, and I think if you are
Uh-huh.
there, you have
Uh-huh.
the upper hand in terms of being able to hold your position. But I
Not when
think,
City is not there.
yeah, but I think,
You don't
yeah,
have any upper hand anywhere.
yeah, it depends on how much City gains ground. It depends on how Chelsea is able to keep up. It depends on Arsenal. I think are one of the teams that would definitely make it. I think it's really between City, Chelsea, and Nottingham Forest. And I think Chelsea has enough in the tank to recover. It does look like they are still playing very well. It just looks like is like the players are just out of tune for whatever reason. So it does look like if they come in and they build that same run that which they had like 8 games on a winning trot, they should
Yeah.
be fine. So for me right now, even though Nottingham Forest is in the lead, it looks like they have not had their test yet. And if it, they have their test of injuries, lack of form, I think they'll be the first to drop out.
So pick one. At the end of the season, who is going to be in the top four? You give me your top four prediction.
Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Nottingham Forest.
Okay. So you are betting against Guardiola to make top four. No wahala. Me, I'm betting on Guardiola to make top four. All the pretentious Manchester City fans know that I stood by you. Anyway, this has been a really wonderful episode, bringing back the beer parlor. And like as we've seen, the January transfer window is really like a not the most exciting, but probably also one of the most complex transfer windows because a lot of clubs are making very small but very, very deliberate decisions because they have very little wiggle room. So it's an exciting window to break down. Hopefully, we see how the clubs shape up at the end of the transfer window. And as always, leave your thoughts, leave your comments. Let us know the players that you want to get out of your club or to get into your club. Let us know who you think the top four predictions for the English Premier League would be. At least I know Nottingham Forest will make it. Erasmus seems to think that betting against Pep Guardiola is his New Year resolution. So let's let's stick to it and let's see where we all end up. But yeah, thanks everyone, and see you on the next episode of the Beer Parlor. But subscribe, leave your likes, and let us know what you think.